Good morning, YouTube. I've had these 2020 Burton Step On bindings since, well, 2020. They're not perfect, but best bindings I've ever used, and if you keep an eye out, you'll see they're probably the single most prevalent model on the hill, and for good reason, too. They're reliable, they're super responsive, and despite how some die-hard old schoolers might feel, the metal cleats are just as secure, if not more so, than plastic straps. You can hang them from the lift, eat a healthy serving of sandwiches in the park, and find out if your God is paying attention to you while you go down the double blacks. I'm no shill for Burton. I'm not a fan of how their boots hold up or where they make their boards. And these bindings do have some room for improvement. I'm going to show you 3 mods you can make to improve your step-on experience, magically become a pro-level snowboarder like me, and look sexy while you're doing it. All the commercials show you cool kids easily stepping in all kinds of cool ways. But they don't tell you that it actually takes a lot of practice. You sort of have to swing your foot around the high back, which isn't exactly conducive to balancing while skating. If you miss, you end up kicking it over, and then you end up wasting more time than you would have if you had just strapped in with regular bindings. And then you look like a tool. I'm going to show you how to fix that easily, one of 2 different ways. The first is simple. Take a hose clamp. This is a stainless steel number 20. Tons of other sizes would work too, but this is what I had, and it works. Thread it around the high back and low back. Don't run it down yet if you care about the metal edges digging into the plastic. If you don't care, that's it. Run it down, you're done. If you do care, mark the areas where it looks like it's going to dig in with a Sharpie and then remove the clamp. Cut some heat shrink tubing to length, 8mm tubing in my case. And slip it over to where you marked your Sharpie. This is to make a protective sheath to protect your plastic. These bindings are not cheap. Hit it with a lighter or a heat gun. And reinstall the hose clamp nice and tight. It protrudes out a little bit, but the boot will latch in, no problem. And God himself couldn't accidentally kick this high back over. And yes, I'm that idiot who reinstalled his high backs on the wrong feet. Bit of a filming continuity error, you'll see later. You might wonder if a zip tie would be an easier option, but partner, I tried 25-pounders, 75-pounders. I got so fed up that by the end I was running these 170-pounders, 3 at once. They all snapped, either after a few runs or a few hours at most. There's just not that much force pushing on these plastic high backs. I'm an engineer and I don't understand why high-strength zip ties don't work, but they don't. My home mountain is littered with dozens of eviscerated heavy-duty zip ties from me, so in my opinion, gotta be stainless steel. The second, more interesting option is to remove the high backs completely. What? Yeah, seriously. High backs aren't mission critical with step-on bindings, and you gotta admit, whether you trust me or not, they do look neat. All you need is a number 3 Phillips and 4 15/16 stainless steel washers, 2 for each side. Just hold the nut insert from turning and then remove the screw with the screwdriver. Then you simply lift out the high back, low back assembly. To separate the high back, just squeeze and pop them apart. Then put the low back back in, but notice the slop side to side. Now that the high backs are gone, that's what the washers are for. Take your 2 washers. Again, these are 15/16. You can try other sizes. This is just what worked for me. Put the screw through to hold them in place while you reinstall your low back. And then get your threaded nut insert. A little bit of low-strength thread locker would be a good call here. And tighten to German spec. Same thing on the other side. And now you can step right on, literally. Best part is, if you ever change your mind, just pop the washers out and you can snap the high back and low back together. This is a great mod for the park rats, because you rarely need super high heel edge angles in the park, but you do need to strap in and out a lot, and this makes that a lot easier. But as you can see, you can still hold an edge pretty easily. I will say you lose an iota of urgency on the heel edge transition, but you get used to it right away, and this is a great compromise between park and freeride. One more mod I've made to my step-ons is the high back angle adjustment. Most Burton bindings are adjustable from F0 to F6, but the step-ons, they max out at F3. Some people like a super aggressive angle, and the fix is simple. Start by removing the high back. See these two screw holes? That's your high back adjustment. If you could increase the length of that screw, you could increase your high back angle. So let's remove the screws with a long number 2 Phillips. You may need to push them out with something once they're loose. Pop goes the weasel. The adjustment screws are just 10-32 by 1/2 inch black screws with tiny indicators etched into the side that's milled flat. There's nothing else special about them, so just get 4 longer 10-32 screws, like 1 inch. Stainless steel, of course. Link in the description. I recommend a set screw because most pan heads or socket cap screws are going to be too wide to fit down in the bore where the screw adjuster goes. Well, unless you have a lathe or a bench grinder. Of course, you'll lose your numbered indicator, but if you can just count the threads, starting at F1, 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 turns, just about there, is F1 to F2. Focus. F2 to F3, you guessed it. 1, 2, 3, 4 turns, and so on. Can you count by 4s? Do you have 75 cents? Then you can increase your step-on high back angle to about F5 using this method.